Did we come up with a beautiful opening? Riveting? Exciting? Mind-blowing?
I think it's almost a little bit difficult to kick this discussion off because the episode ended with something so unexpected. I'm feeling...
Whiplash.
Yes. I think the word I am looking for is that I am just a little bit speechless after the ending of that episode.
Well, you're gonna have to find your voice because we're about to talk a whole lot about it.
Yes.
But we can start on an easier note if you prefer. There were some cuties in the opening scene.
The lions! It's nice to see that Jason Lannister has not lost any of his shining arrogance. He is just as entertaining as before.
The Lannister army's looking fierce.
Just like it was really nostalgic, at least for me, not for you, for me to see the North and Winterfell and the Starks, well, mostly Winterfell. I really enjoyed seeing a proper Lannister army and the accompanying music and everything.
The Lannister personality is strong in Jason, as we can see, and he even has the balls to demand that Aemond show up on Vhagar before he's wanting to march anywhere.
But I really like the inclusion of that because it does make sense. Why would you want to go anywhere without a dragon if you are in a dragon war? So I think it's quite cool to see that the armies are now demanding that they get the backup they want.
And I think it makes sense.
Yes, because they wouldn't want to face any of the enemy dragons without one of their own.
No, because they are now on the field. The dragons have been awakened and have joined combat.
Yeah, Jason Lannister has not lost any of his arrogance, but this time he has brought some lions with him. And we do love cats, don't we?
Cats. Meow, meow.
What do you think they're going to do with them?
Maybe they're like emotional support animals. So like when the Lannisters in the army, if they're like feeling sad, feeling demotivated, then they can like come and pet the kitty cat and feel better.
Pet the little pet lion. I'd love to see them in the field. It would be just so cool. And I mean, why are they bringing so many if they're not planning on using them? Do they feed their enemies?
Well, they only brought 2, didn't they?
Didn't they have more cages? Maybe there are only 2. You might be right.
Looks
I
like
think
just
you're
those
right.
2.
Yeah, just 2. But still, so cool.
Do you think they could take on a dragon? No, wait, let's rephrase that. Which one of the dragons do you think they could take on?
They could definitely take on a Stormcloud. That would be quite nice.
Nice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think they have about the same chance to take on Syrax as Syrax has to take on Vhagar.
It's a new version of rock, paper, scissors.
Well, who takes Vhagar? The lions, yes.
Obviously. Because Vhagar doesn't have the heart to kill them.
This episode is, of course, titled How to Train Your Dragon, not How to Train Your Lion. So, unfortunately, we're going to have to jump to a different species.
I think maybe we should have expected a sort of dragon claiming scene to go wrong from the discussion that Jace and Rhaenyra had at the end of last episode when they talked about let's put more people on dragons. They just need a drop of Targaryen blood, right? But it's still so kind of savage to just see it and just having all the people run away when everything goes wrong was a bit chilling, ironically.
I feel like maybe they weren't as prepared as they maybe should have been. Like, why wouldn't they have, like, maybe a big bucket of water standing, like maybe a little pool that, you know, like a little kiddie pool that they could roll around in if
Maybe
needed.
they're going to have that from now on. I think the dragon trainer, what do you even call them, was probably the most prepared because he had that blade and he was just ready to kind of meet his end a little bit sooner and not as drawn out as Lord Darklyn clearly had to.
He definitely seemed prepared for this possibility and seemed like he had some training in place in case.
He also had some burns, so I don't think this was his first rather unpleasant meeting with a dragon.
Maybe the first time he slit his own throat, though.
I think what's really kind of interesting here is that we don't quite know what makes a dragon really choose someone, because the only thing that is clear is that the dragon has to be okay with it. The dragon does truly choose. The accusations that Aemond stole Vhagar could not be further from the truth. And I don't know what. Maybe it was simply too unimpressive for Seasmoke, the way this Lord Darkland was trying to pronounce Valyrian. I don't know. I truly don't know if it has something to do with maybe his blood was not Targaryen enough, because Rhaenyra seemed to kind of put all her eggs in that basket of there was some great grandmother or something.
She also makes a point out of saying that this is the best option they have. Like, this is the guy with the most Valyrian blood. So this is like their biggest hope. And it was like his grandmother's grandmother.
You clearly see that's not true later in this episode. It's just that this might be the closest noble.
Highborn.
Yes, exactly. A noble person with enough Targaryen blood.
Because we all know that bastards don't count.
But dragons are not as picky. They're more... Well, I don't think Addam is speaking High Valyrian, but something about him was clearly right.
Yeah, I gotta say, this actor is doing a great job of looking really out of place amongst these dragon tamers who's singing this ancient lullaby, and even Rhaenyra standing in the back. Everyone is looking like they kind of belong in this world, and then he tumbles in there and it's just like, it does not look right.
I know, and it's kind of funny the way I feel like Seasmoke is almost luring him into a false sense of security, because he's, you know, famous last words, I've done it, and Seasmoke is just psych. Dragons are supposed to be quite intelligent, so maybe he was just, you know, playing with his dinner.
Well, he had his sights on someone else.
But let's talk about that dragon lullaby, because it does tie with the scene of Daemon at the end of season 1. Is this a sort of call for the dragons to come?
Seems like it's the dragon version of like for cats.
It could be. From the scene, it seems like that might be. Obviously, when Rhaenyra is proposing this very dangerous experiment to her Kingsguard, Lord Darkland, she says that she thinks Seasmoke is missing his bond. And I'm just wondering, is this her admitting that Laenor has died off screen?
If she thinks that Seasmoke can be tamed, then likely she does have a notion that Laenor is dead. I would
She
think.
should be fairly certain, because she is gambling a man's life on it.
It was nice of her to be very clear that it was his choice whether he wanted to try this or not. But at the same time, I felt like it was maybe a little bit of one of those moments where we're not going to blame Rhaenyra for his death for sure.
But for Rhaenyra, he would be alive, though.
Yeah, but it was his choice now. She didn't make him do anything.
And he did have like a little bit of a sparkle in his eyes when he thought it was gonna...
Yeah, it did seem like he wanted this.
And I mean...
He felt like a main character.
Who wouldn't? He would be the first kind of non-Targaryen or non-Valyrian dragon rider. It would... He knows that this would make history. So that's probably a bit seductive as well.
Yeah. Also having served the Targaryens as a White Cloak, I would think that it would seem very, very special if suddenly he was to be counted as part of their family and actually be somewhat of a Targaryen himself.
Yeah, lots of reasons for him to not protest too much, really. One thing I thought was really nice that is also during this council meeting that Lord Darkland is saying that the dragons are gods, or he thought of dragons as gods, and that really nicely mirrors the last episode we saw, where the Smallfolk felt a bit disgusted and shocked at seeing Meleys because they also think of dragons as gods, and the possibility of this kind of dismantling the very image of the dragons, and with them truly the Targaryens themselves.
If anything, I feel like this episode is maybe trying to disprove that with how no, he's not able to claim the dragon, and the dragon has actually selected his own rider. and is gonna go get him. I must say it puzzles me that this is their choice of arena for where they want to claim dragons. Basically out on this plank in the middle of nowhere where they're completely at the mercy of the dragon. They have nothing to hide behind, no water, no nothing. I would just have thought that if I was one of these dragon tamers, I would maybe think that some safety precautions could be placed in
not
here.
very aesthetic, is it?
Maybe have a separate arena where you want to claim them. But yeah, not as aesthetic, I suppose. It is cool to see the dragon just burn people as they run away on this tiny, narrow platform, but didn't seem that wise to me, is all.
I'd love to have seen these characters give a sort of percentage of how likely they thought this was going to work out.
Oh, I would love to hear like an interview from each one of them, giving their like guess on this. Putting in bets.
They couldn't have thought this was a 50-50.
Seasmoke is such a delicious dragon, though.
I love the little sticks. What are they going to do against a dragon?
Oh, I'll poke you. Maybe they're relying on the training that the dragons get when they're small, or maybe those sticks
That
have
could
a bit
be
more. Kind of like how with elephants, they believe they're tied to the ground just because when they were smaller, then they weren't strong enough. And then they just always believe that they can't.
Oh my goodness, that's so sad. But it would make sense that they had to train dragons that way, otherwise the dragons would just be completely out of control.
I mean, you can't overpower them once they're big, so unless you've managed to trick them into thinking that you somehow hold some of authority over them, then yeah, I suppose that might be why it's so difficult to tame them once they've grown large, because, well, not just difficult, but impossible to train them once they've grown up wild.
Which again, nettles.
Oh my god, nettles. We'll get to that. I just want to see Seasmoke burn stuff again. Real quick.
In fact, Seasmoke was in such a hurry to not be claimed by someone else that he didn't even eat his victims. He just flew straight to his one true love because Seasmoke wanted to claim Addam of Hull.
A match written in the stars.
So we went from How to Train Your Dragon to How to Train Your Rider. I really like that Seasmoke has so much personality in these shots. He's so cute.
Yes. It's so interesting to see that the dragons can actually hunt their prey in a way. Well, he's a rider, so he's not actually going to eat him, but that the dragon is actually stalking him, kind of. Because we just see them descend upon people, burn them, eat them, whatever. But here he's very much like circling, just honing in, really in the chase of a man on the ground.
Because it's very clear he's looking for Addam. And when he found him, he just narrowed in and flew after him. At one point I was wondering if he was going to pick him up.
He had put his target on him. He was not getting away. I do wonder if maybe he smelled a little like Laenor, because this is his half-brother.
Yeah, maybe the dragons can kind of tell. Like you said, maybe they truly are as special as they're rumored to be, and they do want to bond with certain blood, I suppose. And Seasmoke also seems very inspired by Laenor's being forced to marry someone, because Seasmoke does not want that for himself. He wants to choose his mate.
I love that.
And Rhaenyra did say that it seemed like he missed his bond. So here we can see that as well. He does seem rather...
inspired?
Yes. I love the way he's sliding. Just so happy, like, found you.
It's like a dog when you're hiding from your dog in the forest and they come looking for you. Except he didn't pounce on him, I suppose.
He would be fairly dead in that case.
I do really like how he doesn't seem actually fearful, though. Like, a part of him seems to maybe sense this bond forming, or...
I thought so too. At least in the last shot, when he is running away, he seems...
terrified,
intent on keeping alive and keep living. But at this point, he seems intrigued. And I think that's really nice because we saw that in the previous scenes of him and Seasmoke as well, when Seasmoke was just flying high above.
They really managed to make this claiming special and unique.
This is more like a human claiming scene, of course.
I just love how they really showed how it was the dragon's choice here.
Yes, they really did.
So special.
I like that.
While Seasmoke wasn't hungry enough to eat Addam here, then someone are hungry and are wanting some meat. And that's the Smallfolk of King's Landing. They are showing that there is much more to war than just how many people do you have to carry swords to hack at each other. Mysaria's storyline has focused on the power of the people back from season 1, when she's been talking about you only have the power that we allow you to take. And obviously she is helping Rhaenyra in this episode, and they have cooked up their little plan to sway the people of King's Landing to cause some ruckus underneath the cloak of the Greens. Even though the reason the people of King's Landing are starving, are going hungry, are dying, is because Rhaenyra has cut off the food supply. Mysaria's plan to deliver some food at the beaches is cleverly done to win back their loyalty, hoping that they're not going to put 2 and 2 together. That, yes, Rhaenyra is the reason we're hungry in the first place, and now she's giving us food to buy our loyalty as well. They're just hoping that the people are going to be so starved and so upset that Rhaenyra will win their hearts, essentially, by providing them food and promises of better tidings.
We see this kind of thing happening in Game of Thrones as well, where the people of King's Landing are attacking, well, all of the royals, essentially, because a lack of food will make anyone rather animalistic. It's just what happens, really. And I do actually quite like that they are showing the people switching sides to favor Rhaenyra, because they are living in such miserable conditions under this current regime. Because that is something that we see happen again and again with humans and in societies in general. It's not typical for people to think rationally and think, oh, but it's Rhaenyra's fault, so even though she's sending food, she is the reason we are starving. And the way things just escalate so incredibly quickly, I find that quite realistic as well, because you push people further and further until it just boils over, really, and then things might seem like they are exploding when they truly have been building up the pressure.
Yeah, there was like a ticking time bomb when the people were starving, and then Mysaria sending in her little birds, whispering and setting up these rumors about how the royals were living in such luxury inside of the keep and just throwing these huge feasts and partying and having lots of prostitutes and eating all sorts of delicacies.
Because we saw in the previous episode that one of Mysaria's spies, or someone in her service, someone in Rhaenyra's service at the very least, knocked on Diana's door. So they are clearly not only doing this themselves, but they have also enlisted the help of at least the sex worker that has been with Aemond quite a lot. I have a feeling they are probably working with more people as well to truly get the word out there. By showing us that she is now also working for Rhaenyra and against the Greens, we are kind of given this subtle hint that they are enlisting more people. And I think that is quite effective. And we see all the people around in this little tavern listening, perking up, and probably taking in the information, seething. And you don't need to see this kind of scenario happen 10, 20, several times over for it to be believable that it has happened that many times. And it has seemed to have quite an effect. So although as a viewer, it's kind of frustrating to see that the Smallfolk are blaming the wrong person and then also revering the wrong person for giving them food that they have denied them in the first place. I think it makes sense. I think it's realistic, even though it's annoying to see. It does work because people are desperate. And it's also showing that Rhaenyra has desperately lacked someone more politically savvy to help instruct her and counsel her. Because Miss Arya is a little bit smarter.
She's played this game much longer. Because Miss Arya has been... She's climbed the ladder on her own, whereas Rhaenyra has just inherited her spot.
She was born at the top. She didn't need any ladder.
Yes, Miss Arya has clawed her way there, using any advantage she's had, playing the cards she could get her hands on.
The one thing I found kind of unrealistic about this whole thing is when the actual riot is happening, because the guards that are escorting Alicent and Helaena see this starting to happen and then they take them out of the sept when it just seems so much more dangerous to be outside instead of inside. Why wouldn't you keep them inside until you have calmed the crowds?
It's because it didn't seem like anyone wanted to go into the sept anyway.
It would have been so much easier, I think, to call for help. It just seems so unnecessarily dangerous to take them out where they are vulnerable on the street.
And we know there's a good hiding spot right under that table, because that's where they found Aegon. I would just have liked if they had brought some robes or something to at least try to hide them a little bit before escorting them out.
Seemed like a panicked and unwise decision for sure. Because there are so many people, and I like that we actually see that, but there are so many people, it would seem like no problem to overpower that little carriage that they want to get them into. I feel so bad for Helaena when she's covering her ears.
That's like a recurring thing with her, I think, that she's covering her ears when things are happening.
Yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be a thing that the people really loved Helaena, but maybe that's not the way they're going in this show.
From the books, I think it is. I think it's realistic that they might have started out liking her, but as their own lives really take a deep dive, they need someone to blame, and it's very easy to blame the people who seem like they have the power to change something, but they don't, and they're just living their best lives. Obviously, none of the people in this story are living their best lives.
Luckily, we got to see some more of the dog. I was really worried that we weren't going to get more scenes with him.
I was really worried someone was going to kick him again.
Oh, that could have so easily happened with all the people running.
But we are here given a shot to prove that Ulf is a truly good person because he is petting this dog, even though he is stealing food from someone else in the next scene.
And hitting them?
Yeah.
But he didn't hit the dog, so I don't think it counts.
People are fair game. We also see from Alicent in the carriage after the riot that she has a cut on her arm that looks very similar to the one that Rhaenyra got from Alicent in episode 7. What do you think that means?
Oh, is it the same arm?
Yeah, it's the same arm.
Maybe it's karma, because Alicent was so in the wrong about trying to protect her children when Rhaenyra and Rhaenyra's children were on the line.
No. Listen, this is more like once upon a time, Alicent had to protect her children, and she cut Rhaenyra when Rhaenyra was gaslighting her. And this time around, she is doing everything she can to protect Helaena, and she is willing to take a gash for that as well, because Helaena she wasn't actually hurt this time around, so Alicent is happy that she was hurt instead of Helaena. Do you have anything to add? It's the only way to interpret it. I do truly feel like Alicent she is struggling to connect emotionally with her children. She has so many issues that she often seems like she
mistreats them instead?
Yes. It seems like she quite often struggles with connecting with them and being there for them, but she always seems 100% ready to put down her own life to protect them. Like she did with Aegon when Rhaenys could have avoided this entire war. She is just standing in front of Aegon, ready to be burnt alive by a dragon. Here, her first instinct and her first worry is not that the Smallfolk are attacking her, it's Helaena is the main priority, which I think is a nice quality in Alicent, and she is also trying to limit the violence in the situation.
Making her guards put away their weapons.
To be fair, after they cut that arm, it was too late, really. Daemon is continuing his wild trip, visiting in some sort of probably drug or magic-induced hallucination all of the people he has wronged in his life or truly harmed. I wonder when Rhea Royce is going to appear.
Ooh, I want to see her.
So this first scene with Viserys, when we are seeing a pretty much almost a direct repeat of the scene we saw after, is that in episode 1 even, when Emma dies?
It should be because Rhaenyra is made heir immediately.
After. True.
I think so, yeah, at the very end of the first episode.
So what does this scene mean?
For a second, I was wondering if they just used the same voice recording.
It's not, because I've seen that episode so many times. I can tell there is a difference in inflection and volume. So I can tell it's not the same one. But I was kind of waiting for something very... Yeah, I know. I was kind of waiting for something different to happen.
Yeah, that he might say something in a different way that would add some more layers to it or something.
I mean, I do kind of enjoy that Daemon is just scoffing, like, how are you still angry about this? Like, how lame are you?
Come on, move on.
He has absolutely nothing, like no leg to stand on when it comes to telling others when they need to get over the pain that he has caused.
Yeah, he's really, he's not very empathetic. When Viserys is saying that his family was just destroyed, and Daemon is just like, what? But I'm your family. I wonder if they're trying to show us how Daemon was feeling when that happened, instead of just a mask that he's typically showing. Because he's so emotional in this scene, reacting to the same words that Viserys was throwing at him back then. And now he's like begging him not to do this, basically, in tears.
That's interesting. Yeah, that could be. Because I'm wondering if the whole point of this storyline is to show that Daemon is supposed to gain some kind of consciousness or something. So it might also show the way Daemon has changed, maybe, to feel some sort of emotion other than rage.
Yeah, so he's self-reflecting a little, perhaps. What do you think is the significance of the doors being locked and him unable to open them?
It's clearly that he cannot escape, and he seems rather desperate to escape these hallucinations that he has as well. But I think the position he has been put in here by presumably Alys Rivers, or the ghosts, or whatever magic is coming together to cause this, is that he cannot get away from reliving painful things from his past. But I'm not entirely sure what it is. Like, I was about to ask you the same thing.
I do think it's very interesting because they continue having it be relevant that, like, he can't open a door or a door is being yanked.
He is quite literally stuck at Harrenhal as well. He is stuck in these hallucinations. He is stuck in facing his demons, perhaps?
His demons?
God. I think one Daemon is enough.
You never really want more than one.
Because he is, in this one at least, getting to the point where he is begging. When have we ever seen
Desperately
Daemon beg? I think his begging to have the doors opened might tie into the conversation with Alys, where he is also begging her and she is kind of almost...
Yeah, because she points it out too, doesn't she?
And in season 1, we have Viserys, is he telling Alicent or whoever he is telling it to, he is saying that Daemon would rather, he would never ask for help. Like, it definitely seems like it's put here to signify a change in his character, maybe. Like, something definitely is happening to him.
I think it's so funny how Simon Strong is seeing Daemon absolutely lose his bananas, putting him in such a difficult position. This poor old man. And also accusing him of being allied with Rhaenyra secretly, as if that wasn't the whole point. When he came there, then they allied themselves to Rhaenyra's side. And obviously Daemon is making a side for himself now. But as far as I know, he hasn't made the Strongs bend the knee to him rather than Rhaenyra. But maybe I missed the memo on that.
Obviously, the help that Daemon gets from Alys is that she is telling him to wait. Just sit tight for a few days, 3 days or something? And that things will change. And they do, because she suggests herself as a healer.
I love the inclusion of the owl.
It's very cute. It really works. Makes her even more mystical and magical. Daemon must, at this point, realize that she is not an ordinary woman, because she is telling him about how Viserys didn't want the crown either, and all of these things. She knows things that if she were a regular just servant there, she wouldn't have.
No, and she even mentions things that Daemon have done, like when she says that this is what you do, isn't it? And she's mentioning the stepstones and pentos and all these things that she shouldn't know about. And yet he doesn't lift an eyebrow at that. He's just like, oh no. It must be someone who poisoned me. Not her, though.
Not
Not
her.
her.
She's helping me.
Her help I need.
So much I am going to ask for it twice.
Having Daemon sit tight for another 3 days allows Alys Rivers to place some more visions in his head. It makes me wonder about Alys' plan with Daemon. Because she's giving him all these visions and it's making him accountable for all the bad shit that he's done and things he has to relive. But it almost also seems a little therapeutic in this scene where he's able to actually be there for Viserys when he needed him. And he's comforting him, and it's probably what he wanted for his relationship with Viserys. That Viserys would turn to him and he would be the one to be there for Viserys. But I'm not sure if this whole process is meant to make him a better pawn to her in a way.
I very much get the feeling that she is trying to coax some emotion out of him. And what I found interesting about this scene particularly is that when he comes to, he is still emotional in a way that he often isn't, because he often wakes and he is enraged or confused. But here he seems to have kind of accepted whatever happened, and he's not so much trying to fight the fact that these visions are happening, and also he is gobbling up that wine even though he has said he is concerned that it is poisoned. So he must be somewhat open to having these, and the emotion here seems to kind of spill over from the illusion into real life. So I don't know if she is trying to change who he is when he is conscious. He is still pleased with the fact that this man has been killed by Alys River, and he's also probably even more likely to listen to her after she has clearly done that for him.
Yeah, he asked her for help and she gave it, so probably feels like she's a good ally to have.
She definitely endeared herself to Daemon by committing a little bit of murder.
His favorite thing. On the other hand, Jason Lannister has not endeared himself to Aemond, demanding that he come help them on Vhagar.
Endearing is not really a word I would use to describe Jason Lannister.
Nor Aemond.
It is clear that Aemond is way less willing to compromise and treat with his council members and even his allies than Aegon.
He's definitely very hands-on and is taking charge. Even just the way that he's hovering above Tyland's shoulder while he's talking, and like...
He is so threatening, his entire being. I am betting that everyone around that table is missing Aegon at that point. Serves them well for sort of not believing in him and not including him in all of their plans and schemes.
Aegon was definitely more supple to their opinions, their swayings. I think they could have more easily molded him as a ruler, but they just tried to shove him off the board instead of including him and teaching him. Whereas Aemond is entirely different from Aegon. He is unyielding.
And he has already made up his mind about what kind of ruler he wants to be. And he is he values decisiveness much more, to the point where he is not as willing to listen to counsel. And he is not afraid to send people off and make that small council much smaller. He is obviously dismissing Alicent, and he is sending Tylan off to resolve the blockade. He is sending Kristen to the Riverlands.
Using his resources.
And I was almost a bit surprised that Alicent was still on the council when we saw the first scene, because I just assumed he would get rid of her.
I do think it's a wise choice to trade out Alicent for Otto, though.
Yes, I think so too. Alicent is conflicted and Alicent needs therapy. They all really do. Do you feel like she might be making the same mistake a little bit? I'm not sure Aegon would have kicked her off the small council even after she was so awful to him. But she is still telling Aemond that he has qualities that you do not want in a king, and she is trying to fight him a little bit.
There is very little respect going around.
I mean, you can say that goes for pretty much any direction, but especially when we see the second small council meeting where Aemond is just directly humiliating Larys. He knows that Larys is going to interpret their conversation as him being offered the position of hand. And when he's trying to sort of fake humbly accept it, Aemond is just like, you fool. Of course it's not you.
Very funny
Very
scene.
funny, but
It's being an asshole, of course.
I'm sure that is going to cost Aemond at some point.
I do wonder about the line that Alicent says to Aemond when he's making it clear he's gonna send her off. And she says, "Have the indignities of your childhood not yet sufficiently been avenged?" And it seems like this is a way to sort of appeal to his emotional side and be a bit like more motherly to him instead of fighting with him. But I wonder how it's relevant to their conversation or even this council meeting. Like, why is this line coming now? Because I like the line, and I like that she's approaching him about it. I just thought maybe it was a weird timing for it.
I think that might be a running theme throughout all of this. Alicent's timing is really, really, really poor. Her timing of lashing out at Aegon, horrible timing. Larys is being very obvious, and it's kind of fun to see someone not play along with that and not sort of let him, but rather give him a little bit of shit for it.
Yeah, because he sees what he's up to, and he's like, thinks he's so sneaky and so clever and so smart all the time. And then to have Aemond kick him a little feels satisfying.
It's kind of fun, yeah. And obviously Orwyle is working overtime these days, tending to Aegon and trying to keep him alive. Must be an especially dangerous job when Aemond would rather see that he didn't survive this. I think it's really funny the way Aemond reacts when Orwyle is telling him that Aegon has regained consciousness. There is no, thank God my brother is alive and I can't wait to talk to him again. But he can't wait to go see him and check out what he remembers. And obviously Aegon is conscious when Aemond goes to see him. He's such a good actor. I forget that he's not actually in pain because I keep thinking, wow, it's so amazing that he can convey this fear while being in such pain, but obviously the actor is not in pain. But the fear is, it's just a fantastic scene. I think even though there is so little said, you can just see how terrified Aegon is of his brother. Obviously, he's the reason he's in that state. He probably knows that Aemond might want to finish the job he started.
And how Aemond just is barging in there, demanding to know what he remembers. There is no brotherly affection between the two of them. It's so cold. Aemond just making it real clear that no, you do not remember what happened. And Aegon just bowing to that desperately so Aemond won't.
But the fear is betraying him because he clearly remembers, otherwise he would not be so afraid.
What do you think it means that he's giving him back the little stone ball from the council meeting?
I don't know, because he has now regained consciousness, so maybe he should be allowed a say again. They did say that the king cannot rule in his sleep, but he is no longer asleep, is he? Aemond is making it clear that he wants him sedated, and for a long time. Aemond clearly would never wish to step down from the position he has now.
No, he very much likes it, I think.
I think one of the strongest scenes really this season is the one where Larys is talking to Aegon. The acting is just so strong, no pun intended. And it's just really subtle. I love the way you can see in Larys that he now sees Aegon in himself. Seeing that twisted, broken leg is so close to himself and giving him kind of harsh truth, tough love, but also a little bit of inspiration and hope, perhaps.
I was quite surprised to be moved by one of Larys' monologues, because he's just been such a creepy, evil vibes dude the whole time.
Very much, but I never feel like we have gotten such an honest look.
Yeah, a peek under the hood.
I definitely felt like he was being himself here, which I don't think he is with very many people at all.
No, he was actually vulnerable, it seemed. He wouldn't have needed to put on such a teary display, because I don't know if Aegon can really even see him.
No.
So it felt very real.
It did.
And of course also seems almost a direct consequence for Aemond after Aemond has mocked Larys, and Larys is joining the Aegon side. Aegon very much found use of Larys' abilities and made that clear, whereas Aemond is completely on the other side of the spectrum.
Not
just
having
like,
any of him.
I will have none of
You
this.
will serve me
Yeah.
though, but I'm not giving you any respect.
Send my mail.
Yup. Go off, little pigeon. Yeah, I'm very much here for seeing how this develops.
And my gosh, can someone just please help Aegon for once? Shall we talk about the great disappointment?
Let's just get into it and get it out of the world, out of our minds.
Here she is. The disgrace.
This is where book readers and show only watchers might have a difference of opinion, but
They make it so obvious too. Like, come on. Here we have Rhaena. Miss, oh, all I want in this world is a dragon, Rhaena. But the dragons on Dragonstone will not have me. And then, ooh, but there is a really large dragon right where she happens to be stationed. But it's, wild. Which storyline could this be?
so I might just be completely delusional. But until she is sitting that dragon, I am going to have hope that maybe they are going to do it like in the book. But I realize that I have just drank a huge cup of the Lulu juice. They are setting up that Rhaena might claim this wild dragon. Because in the books there is a character who does claim this wild dragon.
Could be a different dragon, I suppose. They could have the decency to change the name.
Maybe. Maybe before we go into this section, I'm just gonna say like a tiny, teeny, tiny little, perhaps a spoiler, because we are going to discuss what might happen. So if you don't want that, just move along to the next point.
We will put in chapters for you.
I understand that in a TV show you might want to cut certain characters, certain plot lines that you feel are not as suitable for television. Maybe they are too broad or too vague or just take too much time to develop. This is not one of those storylines. If you do not include Nettles, the character, for anyone who read the book, I think it's a huge mistake, personally. It's possibly my favorite character. It's the one that I have the least complicated feelings about. It has so much meaning. And the character is, the only actually canon person of color. It is someone low-born. It is a woman who is incredibly
Brave.
She's very brave.
Clever.
She's clever. She has so many incredible qualities, and she is in such a difficult situation. I think she's an orphan. It's very much speculated that she has not had an easy life. And the way she manages to claim this huge wild dragon is just such a great story. And if they remove it, I feel like they're just giving this storyline. They're removing the storyline entirely. You cannot replace it with someone that is in a completely different position. A character that is, like most of the other dragon riders we have, privileged and kind of highly encouraged to take a dragon. She is protected. She has had food her entire life. She has obviously struggled because Daemon is her father, but she hasn't suffered or been vulnerable in the same way. And I think it's such a mistake, in addition to removing Rhaena's original storyline, which we're not going to spoil.
Which is so powerful too.
And you're going to ruin it if you do this. Please don't do this. I usually try to find a way to interpret things in a way that they can make sense. I try to accept that things can be good, even though they're not the way I would prefer them to be. There's so many things. I'm really trying to add a lot of goodwill to things, but this storyline, if they remove it, I just cannot get over it.
I completely agree. This was maybe the character I was most looking forward to.
Yeah, same. She was going to be such a cool character in a very, very different way. And you cannot just give that to someone who is so privileged in comparison, where her biggest struggle in life is that she wasn't given a nuke.
Well, she was given one, it just didn't hatch. And then she was allowed to try on 3 more dragons, at least.
It's so frustrating. And I really like Rhaena's character. I really like her in the book as well. But I feel like this is destroying her character as well as Nettles.
Yeah, it makes me really sad because I have nothing against Rhaena at all.
Mm-mm.
I like her. I like her story. And maybe that's just it. I like her story. And they are
ruining it.
If they go down this route, they're burning it. They're ruining it. They're destroying it.
Just to give her some cool dragon riding moments. It just feels like they're saying that you cannot be a cool character unless you have a dragon and you're badass and you're riding into war. And I think it's really exhausting. And
yes, and if they remove Nettles from this story entirely, they also are saying quite directly, you do need to be Valyrian to be cool and badass and have a dragon, actually.
Yes, because the best part about Nettles is how her wit was the most important thing to where she ended up. And they're just erasing that completely. But as I said, I am going to cling to the tiniest grain of delusion and say maybe they're just... It would be hilarious if Rhaena goes out to try to claim it and this dragon is already claimed by Nettles. That would be funny, but they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that.
I really don't think so, but I would much prefer it. Quite interesting how we get to see all the dragons of Rhaenyra's children and have yet to see Dreamfire.
And we saw Sunfire in one episode. I'm sorry for putting so much negativity out on the internet.
But we did warn you about this one.
Yes. So I think I'm done ranting.
For now.
For today, about this scene.
We do have a couple of other scenes to gnaw on.
Yeah.
Where is Otto?
One thing I find kind of funny in this episode is that Otto seems to be out of office. He is not interested in replying to anyone, or at least not Alicent.
He has Do Not Disturb on.
ghosting everyone left, right, and centre. Probably a bit miffed that he was sacked from the same job twice. So Alicent is trying to see if anyone else has heard from him. I really like the conversation between her and her brother.
There's something very endearing about her inquiring about Daemon and what he's like, because he has been growing up apart from Alicent and she doesn't actually know him. She doesn't know what he looks like these days. She doesn't know his voice. And she seems to be clinging on to this hope that he is a good person. And she obviously has her issues with both Aegon and Aemond. And as it becomes clear from this scene, she's also probably feeling that responsibility that did they turn out this way because I'm a bad mother?
I thought it was quite emotional, the way she was, what a difficult thing to have to ask your brother what your own child is like, how they're doing, and sort of the anxious waiting as he is talking about him. I just found it very emotional, a bit tragic, how difficult that must have been for her as well, and the sort of relief as he said that he was kind.
It seemed like that was what she was hoping to hear.
But at the same time, also blaming herself. She's good at that.
A little too good at that, I think. It's getting in the way a lot of the time.
Yeah, it is.
Hopefully we'll hear back from Otto soon.
I mean, Aemond instructed Larys to bring Otto back, so we'll see if Otto is finally replying or leaving them on red still after he is asked to come back for the same job for the third time. Is he going to bite?
They did mention something about seeing Thessarian take flight, didn't they?
Oh yes, maybe he will bring the now infamous son, Daemon.
We shall like to see him.
And his dragon.
Oh yeah.
Most of this show, when we see Helaena, it has been because she is making some sort of prophecy. And the one line she had didn't she have one line only in this episode? Was that she is sitting and tending to her bugs as the bug queen we all know and love. And then she is saying, this one stopped singing. And I often feel like her prophecies can be applied to more than one thing as well. So let's talk about all the things this could mean.
Someone might die.
I mean, I feel like that's a very clear parallel.
Could be Otto, not replying to letters?
Yes, that's what I thought as well. I feel like something that is often used as well about spies is little birds. But maybe that's just Varys and his little birds. So I don't know if that is kind of referring to a spy kind of, I don't know, doing something. Could it have anything to do with Mysaria or Larys? I'm not sure.
The whole series is also called A Song of Ice and Fire.
The prophecy is called A Song of Ice and Fire.
Oh, whoops.
And the prophecy is about to be threatened, isn't it? I also thought because you have 3 cages, you have 3 of the dragons that are trying to be claimed, and Seasmoke has now decided who he wants to be claimed by. Seasmoke was obviously crying a lot in that scene where Mysaria was asking if he was doing that. Maybe you could count that as singing, and now he has stopped singing because he found his
True love.
new BFF. Yes.
Could it be Laenor?
Well, Laenor must be dead, right? If Seasmoke is claiming a new rider, so
Most likely.
that is the way it is established in the universe, at least.
But I suppose that could also be wrong.
Yeah. This is obviously happening right before the riot is happening, where they both kind of have their lives threatened, really. It's a dangerous situation, and because singing can be tied a little bit to birds and spy masters, I was wondering if kind of the singing is over because they have spread all of the rumors they need to really set that riot in action. I don't know. They don't really need to do any more. There are so many ways to interpret this.
Yeah, so maybe it's like the people have stopped singing their praises and are now
Yes, that could be.
shifting.
I feel like there are so many ways of interpreting this, and we're not gonna know in this episode which is right, but maybe in the future.
Will be fun to chew on it.
It might also mean that Rhaenyra has stopped singing because she's so busy kissing.
She's off the market.
I don't know, being married hasn't really stopped her from being on the market before, so...
I do think it's interesting how she's talking about how she wanted to be like Daemon and Daemon wanted to be like her, and that they were two halves of a whole because they kind of saw that in each other, which they wanted to be, which I think is quite an apt observation.
But I think she is much more aware of it than Daemon is. And saying that she wants to be like Daemon is a little bit creepy as she is about to make a move on, get it on with Daemon's previous fiancé, ex-lover, something. But as long as they're happy, I suppose.
Part of me could be happy with a sort of Daemon's exes dumping him and getting together instead type situation.
I love that trope.
I really did not see it coming, though. I guess I didn't catch on to the
Me either.
chemistry between them.
Yeah, me either. I feel like such an idiot, but
I
I'm
feel
terrible at...
bland-saded. But yeah, I might just have been dumb and not caught on to that at all.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I can be kind of dense when it comes to clues like that, but I was very shocked. But I started to wonder when the hug was just lasting just a little bit too long.
Yeah. And I was still shocked that it turned into a kiss. I thought I was going to be like, oh, is this a start of a romance? Maybe after this they're going to enter that area of like, we can't touch, but should we look at each other? But we can't touch. And then they definitely
because
could
we're
touch
the same.
already.
We want a good 6 months of awkward silence and what if and maybe, not just straight into it. They don't have time for that. We only have 2 episodes left of this season.
I mean, at least they're not related.
Right? I'm not sure I would go as far as to call it not toxic because she is Daemon's ex-fiancé. She works for her. She was her prisoner. But at least they're not related. That is very true. Nobody can deny it, I hope.
It is a rarity for this show
Yeah.
that we should appreciate.
Yeah, we do. We appreciate that. We're concernedly seeing where it goes. We were rather okay with them being interrupted with the news of Seasmoke, wouldn't you say? It was a welcome knock on the door.
Yes, indeed.
Did he knock?
No, he did knock. Weren't you paying attention?
I was trying not to, if I'm being completely honest. She's cheating on her husband.
But I mean, he kind of cheated on her, I suppose, in that vision. Not sure how much we can blame him for that. I don't know how conscious he was of his actions
dreaming
there.
about someone as cheating? Because I certainly don't.
Well, are they dreams? Or are they visions? Is he able to, like, actually...
He's not controlling
Is he
them.
controlling his own actions in them?
Because he's trying not to have them. You know what? Of all the things, I'm going to give him a pass on that. Out of all the things Daemon has done, I feel like cheating in a vision is not something I'm going to call him out for being a cheater on.
Okay, so it's just Rhaenyra so far. Obviously, we know who has claimed Seasmoke at this point.
But it's no wonder Rhaenyra is in a rush to figure out who did it, because if it were the Green, that would be a huge blow.
Absolutely. But I do feel like the ending maybe loses some of that tension because we're not wondering who it is.
No, you're right.
And we know that they are connected to Corlys.
Yeah, it's not like we're super worried.
But yeah, it could take a twist, could take a turn.
It could be Missaria.
In a wig.
Lovers on dragons.
Fly on the wings of love. Fly, baby, fly. Reaching the skies above.
I mean, Rhaenyra did want Alicent up on Cyrex with her, so maybe she'll take Missaria instead.
I think Miss Arya is probably more willing.
Oh, me too.
She seemed unarmored by Caraxes in the last season.
Mm-hmm.
And Cyrax is even prettier.
Agreed. Okay, rapid fire. What is your highlight?
Highlight, gotta be Seasmoke. Gotta catch 'em all.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool scene. Loved it.
And your low light, if we can call it that.
Probably the direction they're taking Rhaena.
Yeah.
Big mad about that. Big mad.
My favorite scene is probably the Larys and Aegon scene. It was just so full of emotion, just really, really well done. Something I can see times over and not get bored, I am sure.
And what did you hate? Come on, you know it's the same as mine.
I know it's the same as yours, but I am trying to find sort of my second thing, which nothing can match that. My fear about them excluding a certain character is definitely the biggest, but I think the second thing might be that I'm a little bit sort of not entirely on board with how they handled the riot. It's a bit... could have been done a bit stronger for me, but I don't have a huge issue with it. It's just sort of the rushing them out of the sept that seemed very calm and safe and had very thick walls into a huge angry crowd that wanted to harm them. That was a little weird. Maybe the Kingsguard are secretly wishing they all died. I don't know. Who knows? That's it.
Yeah. You want to rate it? I'll rate it. But I always rate it the same.
0 out of 0 Dreamfire. I'll rate it a tentative 7.5. Tentative, that is...
Ooh, a number this time.
And that is only because I'm keeping hope that they're gonna introduce nettles.
Okay. If not, it's gonna drop, right?
Yeah, into 0 out of 0 nettles.
Oh, the worst rating you can receive.
Pretty much, yeah.
They better give us more dragons next time.
I think they will.
Should we make a prediction that they'll call the next episode Dragon Seeds?
Yeah, I think they will.
Fly on the wings.